Hello, my name is Steve.
And I'm Lily.
And we asked Team Similarly Geeky at TADHack to present our little project, which is called Podcast Annotator. It uses the Telnex API for both voice and for SMS, and it uses symbol AI in order to process that voice. So the problem here is that at the moment I'm writing a book and I do various research using podcasts. Now podcasts are great, there's a lot of information and it's a nice audio new medium, but as a consequence I don't often have the chance to write things down. So when I'm running with a podcast, for example, I can hear the words, but it's very difficult to stop, get out a pen and paper and make notes on what you're hearing. So what we've done is we've set up a conference where you can dial in, you listen to the podcast as part of the conference, and then you can shout at the podcast saying things like, oh, I must remember that, or that's good. At the end of the podcast, it then sends you a text message with a full summary. But to explain how that actually works, it's over to Lily.
Yeah, so again, as a user, you dial in to our Telnex number, and we put you in a conference as the first participant, and then we ask Symbol AI to call us as well into the conference. A point of note is that I'm dialing a UK number, but Symbol only works on American numbers, so we have two numbers attached to the same conference. And once Symbol is joined, we start the audio playback to the human user only, so there's no feedback loop with the transcription. And then at any point when the human user speaks, we make a note of what they say, store it in a transcript, and once they hang up, we'll send them a text message using.
Now the podcast we used for this example is one of my old podcasts about beer, because I didn't want to get in trouble with the YouTube police for violating someone else's copyright, but any podcast could be used. And there's a lot of extensions possible here. So we could pre-process the podcast to find the text that was being spoken at the same time as I'm saying, oh, that's a good point, must remember that. It could be possible to take that speech from the podcast, so it actually turns out saying, oh, the new Commodore 65, that's good, taking half the text from the podcast and half from me. It would also be possible to use some of the extra clever stuff that Symbol AI has in it to say, I'm actually interested about the Spectrum Next, for example. And then it would be able to point out, oh yes, it's in that podcast about 28 minutes in, to save me from having to listen to everything. And there's a lot of other functionality that could be built around the same idea. But at the end of the day, it's a nice little conference thing that lets you listen and respond to a podcast without having to remind yourself what's going on with pen, paper or a computer screen. And that's Podcast Annotator.
Welcome to Podcast Annotator. Your saved podcast will start shortly.
Hello, I'm Stephen Goodwin. It's Tuesday, December the 16th, 2008, and welcome to episode number 29 of The Beer Crate.
Oh, it's an old episode from 2008.
Each week, we'll be looking at the world of beer and brewing, investigating local, national and international breweries, and of course, testing a wide selection of beers.
I love beer.
Lager boys may apply. Coming up on today's show, we have our Preconceptions edition.
Yippee, it's Christmas edition.
This diary, we have a quick tasting featuring a stout in a can
I wonder what the silly names are.
of lager, and the try before you die of cake.
Bye.
So, if you haven't switched off, let's get cracking.